back, ladies and gentlemen, to the She Knows Pro Football podcast. Once again, I'm Alice, aka the NFL Girl. And once again, I got my good friend Dominick here with me. Dominick, how you doing this evening?
I'm not doing too bad. You know, the Eagles didn't play last weekend, so they couldn't lose, and the Saints look good. Of course, they were beating up on the Jets, so that's not saying much. But other than that, we had some ugly games last week. We had some really good games, too, with like that Tampa Bay game. So let's hopefully have some really good games this week again.
I hope so, too. My Broncos had a tribute game to Demaryius Thomas. They beat up on the Lions, which, again, isn't saying much. But just to see all the tributes that they poured out in that game for Demaryius, God rest Demaryius Thomas's soul. I will be missing him forever, but I'm glad to see that they caught a W last week.
Yeah, and then the fact that they were actually on their last drive of the game when they scored their final touchdown, it went 14 plays for 88 yards.
He'll be remembered forever. Well, you guys, we are on to week 15. That means we only got like 3 weeks left in this season. That is amazing. Can you believe we poured through this season despite COVID, despite injuries? Here we are into week 15. I am ready to get started, starting with our Thursday night matchup. We got the 9-4 Kansas City Chiefs headed to Los Angeles to face the 8-5 Chargers. Dominick, who you got?
Yeah, I wouldn't bring up COVID at this moment. We have 137 players on COVID right now over the past 2 days or something. But this game should be a really good game. It's one of those Thursday games that you're actually hoping for instead of getting like Jacksonville against Houston on Thursday night or something. Both these teams are coming in hot right now. The Chiefs are coming in on a 6-game winning streak. They just clobbered the Raiders last week after the Raiders tried to jump up and down their logo at the beginning of the game. Chargers are coming in on a 2-game winning streak right now. They just blew out the Giants last week. Justin Herbert is really getting into form right now. They're actually using him the way they should downfield instead of these little short intermediate throws. I think they're going to be able to continue doing that here. I know the Chiefs defense is playing better, but I just think that they haven't been playing an offense much like the Chargers right now. They're going to get Keenan Allen back in this game. They're still going to have Mike Williams. Austin Eckler did go out at the end of last week, but he should be all right for this game. He's questionable, but I do think he's going to play. I know they're at home, but it's going to be a Chiefs stadium there, obviously, but I do think that the Chargers are going to be able to win this one.
I actually like the way that both of these teams are playing this season. They've had up and down games. Some of the losses that both of them have suffered have been perplexing, but the wins they've been getting have been phenomenal. So I expect this game to be a hell of a matchup. Chiefs travel well. Wherever they go, they travel well. Expect plenty of fans in the stadium. They just play slightly better when they're playing in Arrowhead Stadium. Was not surprised that they caught the W because that's just what they do. They're a fun team to watch, like everything that they have going on. They're one of the more healthy teams in the league right now. Like I said, we have a COVID outbreak, but they, for now, are one of the healthier teams. Chargers, like this kid, Justin Herbert, but mainly I still love Austin Eckler. I will ride that sword forever. I promise you, I will never stop singing the praises of Austin Eckler. He's just one of my favorite running backs in the entire league. This is going to be a great game to watch. Probably one of the better Thursday night games that we've had in a while. That being said, this is going to be a tough game because these are division rivals and they're both trying to get into this playoffs, and the Chargers are trying to take over the division. They've got to beat the Chiefs in order to get that done. I'm like Dominick here. I'm going to give it to the Chargers at home. Moving on to our Saturday matchup, we got the 6-7 Las Vegas Raiders headed to Cleveland to face the 7-6 Browns. Dominick, who you got?
Not a whole lot really to say about this game. The Raiders are healthy. The Browns are certainly not healthy. They're not going to have their head coach in this one, most likely, although he has said that he's vaccinated and boosted, so he might have a chance to come back. They're likely not going to have Mayfield in this game. They're not going to have Hunt in this game. 3/5 of their offensive line is going to be gone in this game. Jarvis Landry is going to be gone. Half their defense is gone. With that said, I still think they're better than the Raiders, so even though they're going to be playing a man down, they're going to be playing at that with the wind off at Lake Erie there, and for some reason, I just think that they are the better team still. I do kind of like Case Keenum anyway. They're still going to have Nick Chubb there, so I'm going to take the Browns to be able to pull this one out somehow.
I got to lean the other way simply because we are talking about, as of right now, the Browns have 18 players out due to COVID. And that also includes their head coach. That includes Baker. That includes Jarvis. They are seriously knocked backwards when it comes to how badly they're hurt due to COVID right now. Raiders are relatively healthy as of right now. They haven't looked great. Last week, they didn't look that great. They're kind of struggling. They're now down to at 6-7, which is sad for them because they started out so so promising. But again, I'm simply going by the health of the team. And I like what I'm seeing, at least out of what Derek Carr is having with his receiver, and especially when he has a healthy Darren Waller back there. I got to give this to the Raiders, and simply just because they're a little bit more healthier going into this game. Next up, we got the 9-4 New England Patriots headed to Indianapolis to face the 7-6 Colts. Dominic, who you got?
This might be the best game of the weekend. I have to see what other games are, but this, to me, I think this is going to be a really good game. Both these teams are coming on off a bye week. Mac Jones is going to have a really tough test here on the road. They're still going to have the running game there. Damian Harris will be there. We'll see what Ramondre Stevenson can do against them. Their defense is very good in New England, but the one area where they're a little more susceptible is in the run game. We know what the Colts have in the run game. They have Jonathan Taylor. I think Taylor's going to be able to get over 100 yards on him. I think Carson Wentz is going to be able to do just enough. I don't think he's going to have a great game, but he didn't have a great game against Buffalo. He only had 103 yards, and the team still won by 20 points, so he could do the same thing here as long as Jonathan Taylor runs wild behind that offensive line, which I think he's going to be able to do. So it's going to be a low-scoring game. I think it's probably going to be like 17-14 or something like that, but I do think that the Colts are going to find a way to pull it out.
This should be definitely one of the better games of the weekend. I absolutely have to agree with Dominic on that, because these are two teams that are really, really trying to fight to get into the playoffs and have a better shot than most of the teams in their divisions. The Patriots, my goodness, you guys, just the turnaround I've seen in this team. When they started out at the beginning of the season, I was like, I'm not sold on this kid, Mac Jones. What are we doing here? What is happening? And just the transformation that I'm seeing within him, the confidence that he's starting to build, the chemistry that he's built with his receivers, the way that his running game started taking off, and in particular, the way the defense is playing for the Patriots, totally turned this team around, climbed all the way back into the top of their division. Fun team to watch. One of the better teams now to watch every single week. Again, the AFC is such a toss-up. You don't know from week to week who's going to catch a win. It's so much parity more in the AFC than in the NFC, and it's so good. That's why I can't say for sure that Patriots can get the win over the Colts, because, again, Colts, with Jonathan Taylor on a tear, the way that he's been going the last several weeks, I'm trying to tell you, this is a fun team to watch, one of the better teams to watch. This will be a great matchup. At the end of the day, Indianapolis is playing at home. I got to give this one to the Colts. I just think Carson Wentz is going to pull out some magic there and get it done and get that W. Moving on to Sunday, we got the 5-8 Carolina Panthers headed to Buffalo to face the 7-6 Bills. Dominic, who you got?
I don't even think this one's going to be close. We don't know who's going to play quarterback for the Carolina Panthers. They started out with Cam Newton last week. He got a rushing touchdown. Then they put in P.J. Walker. Then he threw an interception. They put back in Cam Newton, and they took him out again. So we have no clue what's going on here. They don't have Christian McCaffrey. DJ Moore hasn't really been doing anything, and neither has Robbie Anderson. I like Chuba Hubbard, but he's not going to be enough in this game. The Carolina defense is decent, but we saw that even Tampa Bay's defense, which is good, could not hold up to the onslaught of the Buffalo Bills last week. I know the Bills lost, but they were able to come back hard in that game at the end. I think they're going to be able to do the same thing here at home this week, and I think they're going to be able to blow out the Panthers in this one.
Panthers, there are more question marks here with this team than there are answers to fill them. I don't know what I expected out of Robbie Anderson, in particular DJ Moore this year, who just kind of fell off and disappeared. Haven't really seen any numbers out of him. Can I blame that necessarily on the fact that they've had such a horrible quarterback situation? Partially on that, but partially it's just he's just not getting it done. And it isn't because he isn't open. There's plenty of times he's open. It's just either the ball isn't getting to him or he isn't making the receptions. A little bit of column A and a little bit of column B. Cam Newton, we saw promise in what we thought we were going to get out of him. And every so often we get flashes of what he could be, but it's just not consistent enough. So he comes in and he'll throw a pick and they put in PJ Walker and then he throws a pick and they put Cam back in. It's not a good situation for either one. It's not good for PJ Walker and it's not good for Cam either because there's no consistency there. And if you lean too heavily on Chuba Hubbard is going to get it done, but he can't do but so much if you're leaning that heavily on the run game because the receiving game isn't going anywhere and the passing game is terrible. I can't pick the Carolina Panthers in this game, not the way that the Bills are playing right now. Admittedly, Bills caught a loss last week, but coming in this week, they're going to be fired up. They're going to be pissed off. They're back at home. He's got good receivers. His receivers are healthy. They've got a decent running game. Really like Josh Allen. They're definitely going to get this win here at home.
Yeah, I think PJ Walker needs to go back to Hollywood and hook up with Vin Diesel and start making more Fast and Furious movies.
That might be the answer. Next up, we got the 10-3 Arizona Cardinals headed to Detroit to face the 1-11-1 Lions. Dominick, who you got?
Yeah, the Cardinals caught a big loss this Monday. They're now the number 2 seed in the NFC. I didn't think they were going to win. Last week I did pick the Rams to win, and I was surprised it was as easy as it was. It wasn't as close as the score made it out to be. Turns out that at the end of the game, DeAndre Hopkins, who they thought he had a head injury, he actually has a knee injury. It looks like Adam Schefter's reporting he's going to be out for the rest of the year most likely. That means they're going to have to really rely on A.J. Green in this game, as well as Rondale Moore and Christian Kirk. Chase Edmonds should be back for this game. He was brought off the IR list last week, but he wasn't brought off in time for the game last week. But it looked like James Conner at the end of the game, after the final bell ended, he kind of crumpled down on the ground. He got back up and was able to walk off, but we don't know how bad he's going to be either. So it could be a Chase Edmonds game. Either way, they're playing Detroit. Detroit had 13 players on COVID last week. They're not a very good team right now. Jamal Williams missed last week. It looks like DeAndre Swift is going to miss again this week. So whether Detroit has their full complement of players or not, Arizona is going to go into Detroit and win this game.
Listen, I think Detroit caught their one and only win of the season. I'm not expecting a second win out of them. Arizona did catch a loss last week, meaning that they're going to be fired up. Again, they've got to keep pace with the teams that are leading the NFC right now, which includes the Packers, who are a half game above them. So they've got to keep pace with these teams. The only way to do that is to get these wins over these terrible teams, which includes the Lions, who are just terrible and aren't 100% healthy. We don't know that DeAndre Swift is going to be starting in this game, which means they'll have to lean on Jamal Williams there. Arizona, they might have some questions whether James Conner most likely isn't going to play. We're going to be without Nuke, but we still got Kyler Murray there. He knows how to scramble. AJ Green has shown a little promise last week. Plus he has Christian Kirk. I'm not worried about their receiving game. I'm not worried about their running game, whether James Conner is there or whether Chase Edmonds is starting, because both of them have shown me that they can get it done. Meanwhile, Detroit, I'm not seeing enough out of them, and their offensive line is god awful. So definitely giving this game to the Cardinals.
Not to mention the Cardinals, all of their losses right this year are at home. They're undefeated 7-0 on the road, and this game is on the road in Detroit.
There you go, right there. Next up, we got the 3-10 New York Jets headed to Miami to face the 6-7 Dolphins. Dominick, who you got?
Ugly game. The Jets have nobody. They're going to be starting Zach Wilson in this game, which is sad. Miami really has nobody in their backfield. It looks like Malcolm Brown might come off of IR, but I doubt it. So they're probably going to be starting Duke Johnson in this game, as Savon Ahmed's on COVID right now. Myles Gaskin's on COVID right now, and so is Phillip Lindsay. Either way, Tua's been playing really good lately. Jalen Waddle's been shelling out. He leads the league in receptions as a rookie, and Devontae Parker is finally coming back as well. They're coming off a little bit healthy. They had a bye week last week. They should be back healthy this week. The Jets are coming off a tough loss last week to the Saints. I think they're going to go down to Miami. They're still going to be tired. They're going to be beat up from the Saints game. So I do think that Miami's going to win this one pretty easy.
The Jets are just not a good team, you guys. Just not at all in any way, shape, or form. They have a little bit of promise. I like Quentin Williams on the defense. I've said that before, but the rest of the defense isn't good. Zach Wilson needs a better offensive line. They've been injury plagued. Feel bad for this kid. Maybe there's hope in the future. Miami, meanwhile, they're down a few players due to injuries, due to COVID, but Tua has enough going on for him. And he has, with Jalen Waddle suddenly starting to take off, especially in these last few weeks, not worried about them, not worried that they may have to lean on Duke Johnson in the backfield. Absolutely got to give this game to the Dolphins. Next up, we got the 9-4 Dallas Cowboys headed to New York to face the 4-9 Giants. Dominick, who you got?
Giants are beat up. They're coming off of 2 road games in a row. They're coming back from LA, where they got blown out by the Chargers last week. Looks like Mike Glennon's going to start this game again. I don't trust Mike Glennon against anybody, let alone that Dallas defense, which has been playing really good this year. Love this kid, Micah Parsons. He's going to be awesome. He's definitely going to be the defensive rookie of the year. He could possibly be the defensive player of the year for the entire league. So I'm going to take Dallas in this one.
Giants are just god-awful, just all the way around. They can't stay healthy, and when they are healthy, they aren't producing. Numbers are trash. Mike Glennon is likely going to be starting again this week because Daniel Jones still isn't fully healthy. Going against the Cowboys. Now, Cowboys numbers haven't been what they have been previously, in particular with Dak, but I'm not concerned when it comes to them facing the Giants, and especially the way the Cowboys defense is playing. The way that Diggs is playing, the way Micah Parsons is playing, not worried about them going against these sorry Giants. Gotta give it to the Cowboys. Next up, we got the 6-7 Washington football team headed to Philly to face the 6-7 Eagles. Dominick, who you got?
Yeah, Washington was hot up until they met Dallas last week. Tyler Heineke got hurt in that game. So did Terry McLaurin. Both of them are likely going to miss this game. We don't know if J.D. McKissick is going to be back for this one. He could be. He might not be. Antonio Gibson, even while he was in the backfield by himself last week, really did not do a whole lot. Washington's defense is playing better, but their offense really struggled last week, and it's going to struggle again if Heineke and McLaurin aren't there. So I'm going to have to take Philadelphia in this one, coming back from the bye week with Jalen Hurts back and hopefully healthy. I think he's going to be able to run all over this Washington defense. They're going to use Miles Sanders quite a bit in this game. I expect them to get the run game going a lot and slow this game down. So I'm going to take the Eagles to win this one over Washington.
Listen, we aren't even 100% sure whether or not we're going to have Taylor Heineke in this game. It's a possibility that Kyle Allen has to start. This is not a healthy team, and their defense is banged up even worse than their offense. We are missing key pieces to this defense right now. Going against the Eagles, who are coming in off a bye, meaning that they're going to be refreshed, absolutely should get Jalen Hurts there, and he's going to look good because, again, he has Devonta Smith, who's been producing the way that you need a good receiver to. I'm not concerned about what the Eagles are going to be able to do at home. Going against Washington is banged up and as many players as they have out. So definitely giving this one to the Eagles. Next up, we got the 9-4 Tennessee Titans headed to Pittsburgh to face the 6-1 Steelers. Dominick, who you got?
The Steelers came out flat last Thursday night against Minnesota. Had they not come out flat, they could have won that game. They almost did win at the end, if not for Chase Claypool, which I still think, and I put out on Twitter there, that if Mike Tomlin had let him put some music on during practice, maybe he'd have gotten his energy on. He wouldn't have been dancing after that last first down and cost him the time at the end of the game. That said, we know Tennessee doesn't have Derrick Henry in this game. They did get Julio Jones back, but they're still going to be without A.J. Brown. Ryan Tannehill's good, but this Tennessee team isn't really that physical. They tend not to play well in the cold weather. It's probably going to be cold in Pittsburgh, so I'm going to take Pittsburgh to win this game. I just think they're going to get above 500 and they're going to drop Tennessee to one game closer to the Colts in the division.
Tennessee are missing key parts in that offense that make that whole machine run, particularly losing Derrick Henry early in the season. They kind of got exposed on how much they were leaning on Derrick Henry to be their bell cow. Like, you're seeing that they aren't that same team without him there. And that's kind of sad. And now with A.J. Brown out, that's even going to be even more of a struggle for them and for Ryan Tannehill. Pittsburgh, meanwhile, Chase Claypool, I don't know what was going on with that child last week. Sometimes everybody has a bonehead moment. He had a bonehead moment. Big Ben's numbers aren't what they used to be. He isn't the QB that he used to be. I'm hoping this is his final season, but he's showing just enough to potentially get this team the win here at least, especially with Najee Harris in the backfield and with Chase and Deontay. So definitely got to give it to Pittsburgh. They're there at home. Next up, we got the 2-11 Houston Texans headed to Jacksonville to face the 2-11 Jaguars. Dominick, who you got?
Yeah, this is a matchup of two teams with two elite head coaches and two elite quarterbacks. They both have players on both sides of the ball. They're going to be playing in college. Oh, wait a minute. Sorry, I was reading the headlines for the Matter Day and the Duncanville, Texas football teams. Sorry, both these teams suck. We don't know what we're going to get out of either of them. Neither of them can run the ball. Neither of them can pass the ball. Or Trevor Lawrence just looks lost out there for Jacksonville. Urban Meyer looks like he doesn't want to be there. David Culley, I like David Culley. I just don't think he's in a very good situation. Think his is more situation than it is anything else. This game's ugly, and I almost did it last year, and I decided to pull away from it. This year, I think I will do it. I'm going to say this game's going to end in a tie.
This game is just god-awful from top to bottom. I've never looked less forward to a game than I do to this game. Oh my God. Who is the worst in this division? And absolutely, I don't have an answer because they're both terrible. Houston is terrible from top to bottom, from ownership all the way down. This team is just garbage. Jacksonville, their coaching situation. First of all, same thing. Ownership, I don't know what he's doing in bringing Urban Meyer in to begin with. The Urban Meyer situation is just getting ridiculously out of hand, and the way he treats his players and his coaches and everyone else. These teams look completely lost on the field. Jacksonville being a little bit more so than Houston, but Houston is now leaning on Davis Mills. If there was Tyrod Taylor in there, I would easily have a pick in this game because I would just go with Tyrod. In this case, I don't know because they're both so terrible, but I'm going to toss a coin and I'm going to give this one to the Texans. Next up, we got the 7-6 Cincinnati Bengals headed to Denver to face the 7-6 Broncos. Dominick, who you got?
We talked about it last week. The Broncos play good, really good against bad teams. They did the same thing last week. Obviously, after we talked, they had the devastating news about Demaryius Thomas passing, which was extremely tragic. He seemed like a really good guy, and he was only 33 years old. That's just terrible to hear. I'm glad they were able to get a win for him in the first game. I'm glad that they were able to get the memorial out in front of the stadium. They were able to put his number on the field and everything. This game, I think, though, they're going to be coming. They were playing with emotion last week. I think this week the emotion is going to be a little bit less. I think the Bengals are coming in there upset that they lost this game last week against San Francisco in overtime. They got that field goal, and then they still were able to go down the field and get the touchdown for the 49ers to win the game. That's tough for them. I think they're going to be able to come back in here, win this one. So I am going to take the Bengals to go into Mile High and win this one with a lot of passing to those wide receivers and some running with Joe Mixon, who had a bad game last week, but he's going to do much better this week.
This is going to be a much tougher matchup this week for the Broncos. Broncos was playing on pure emotion last week, and it showed out well. But again, that was against the Lions. The Bengals are on a tear. They need to get these wins. They're still trying to get a push to get into the playoffs. They're like right on that border. They're in that cusp area. And the only way they can get in there is if they get some of these wins. This is going to be a very, very good game. Don't let me convince you otherwise that you're not going to see the best out of the Broncos. But you're damn sure going to see the best out of the Bengals as well, because they got to get these wins. And I have more faith right now, sadly, and as much as it hurt me again as to say this as a Broncos fan, I just have more faith in what I think Joe Burrow can do with Jamar Chase. I know that they didn't hook up really last week. I expect more out of him this week. And then I also expect a lot out of Joe Mixon. So at the end of the day, I got to take the Bengals in this game. Next up, we got the 6-7 Atlanta Falcons headed to San Francisco to face the 7-6 49ers. Dominick, who you got?
Yeah, 49ers are coming in here off a big win against Cincinnati, got them into the playoff hunt again. Jimmy Garoppolo has actually been playing half decent. It was good they had Deebo Samuel back last week. He's the biggest key of their team this year. They should get Eli Mitchell back this week as well, which is good. George Kittle's been having a monster run the past couple weeks. He had 180 yards a couple weeks ago. He had over 100 yards again last week, so I think he's going to have another great game here. Atlanta's going to come in. They're going to keep it close, but I do think in the end, San Francisco is going to be able to pull it out because they're just the better team.
Atlanta, to me, is just a terrible team. I'm sorry. I like Cordell Patterson. He Tennessee Vol, so Vol for life with Cordell, but this team is just bad. Their best player, to me, is still their kicker, Younghoe Koo, because he's one of the more consistent ones in the league. But everywhere else on this team, I just don't see enough out of them and don't see enough consistency. Like this kid, Kyle Pitts, like what he has going with Matt Ryan. But San Francisco, for me, just has a little bit more. Jimmy G with a healthy Deebo Samuel, with a healthy George Kittle, has more weapons. And if they get Eli Mitchell back, my goodness, that's even more of a reason to pick them in this game. Definitely, with San Francisco playing at home, got to give this game to the 49ers. Next up, we got the 5-8 Seattle Seahawks headed to Los Angeles to face the 9-4 Rams. Dominick, who you got?
Yeah, Rams look good on Monday night. I think they're really in good spot to get the division title now, especially with Arizona missing Nuke Hopkins for the rest of the year. Seattle's coming in off of playing Houston, which you really can't take a whole lot of anything out of. I do think this game is going to be close because it is a division game. Even when these two teams have good offenses, they tend to play low-scoring games. So I do think it's going to be kind of low-scoring, but I'm going to take Los Angeles to win this one.
Seattle's not a good team this year. They really aren't. It's fine that they have Russell Wilson back healthy, but I don't think that he's fully healthy. I think that there's some issues still going on with his finger, and you kind of can tell because some of these passes look a little lopsided or they're not getting as far down the field as I know that he normally can push them. And so seeing that, I have questions on how many more wins that this team can get this season because he has good receivers in Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. So you're like, why are their numbers off? Definitely still think it's that finger situation. They got Rashad Penny in the backfield. That's fine. He looked pretty good last week, so I'm hoping that pans out again this week. They're going to face the Rams. The Rams caught a great win on Monday night against the Cardinals. They're showing that they are really fired up, and all those acquisitions that they made during the seasons, all these trades that they made are going to pan out into something. They've got to make it look like that they going all in is going to work out for them. Matthew Stafford and his connection that he has with Cooper Kupp is some kind of magic. And now recently we're seeing OBJ starting to take off. Going to be a great game. At the end of the day, definitely giving this one to the Rams. Next up, we got the 10-3 Green Bay Packers headed to Baltimore to face the 8-5 Ravens. Dominick, who you got?
Yeah, the Ravens are 8-5, but I still think they're almost like a fraud right now. I just don't think they're a very good team. We don't know if they're going to have Lamar Jackson in this game. He does have a sprained ankle. He was not able to practice today on Wednesday. He was carted off the field on Sunday. Green Bay, even without their best defenders, have still been playing very good defense. Aaron Rodgers is on a mission. Aaron Jones played good last week. Devontae Adams had over 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. I think they're going to go into Baltimore and they're going to beat Baltimore pretty good in this one.
Again, right now, Packers are in the number 1 seed of the NFC, and they've got to stay up there because they have other teams that are nipping at their heels. And the only way to do that is to beat teams like the Ravens. The Ravens, we're not 100% sure if we're going to have Tyler Huntley or Lamar Jackson. Regardless, they got great receivers there in Hollywood and Rashad Bateman. The running game with Devonta Freeman is fine or whatever, but they cannot match up with what the Packers got. My goodness. Aaron Rodgers with Devontae Adams with MVS, the running game with Aaron Jones, and even this kid, A.J. Dillon. What I'm seeing out of A.J. Dillon is just something amazing to watch. So absolutely got to take the Packers in this game. They're not going to let the Arizona Cardinals catch them. So definitely giving this one to the Packers. Next up, we got the 5-8 New Orleans Saints headed to Tampa Bay to face the 10-3 Buccaneers. Dominick, who you got?
Yeah, this is the other team that's tied with the Green Bay Packers right now for the number 1 seed in the NFC. I know Green Bay technically has it right now, but they're tied with Tampa Bay, so they have to keep winning to stay ahead of them. One thing Tampa Bay does is they dominate teams at home. One thing they don't do is beat New Orleans. Tom Brady has yet to beat New Orleans and Tampa Bay. For some reason, it's just one of those games where no matter how good one team is and one bad the other team is, they just have a matchup advantage for some reason. So I do think this one's going to be close, but I still don't trust the Saints, even though they are my team. So I think it's going to be a very, very close game, but I'm still going to give the slight edge to Tampa Bay and say they're going to win this one by a field goal.
I just don't like what I see out of Taysom Hill. Taysom Hill is a great gadget QB. Great for that. He's great on the Wildcat. He's great coming in as a tight end. He's great in some situations at QB, but not as your QB1. He just isn't that QB. I know that, which means that they're going to have to lean more heavily on their running game, which is fine because Alvin Kamara's in there and, they can lean a little bit on Mark Ingram as well. But going against Tampa Bay, and again, Tampa Bay is fighting with Green Bay Packers for that number 1 seed. They're fighting with the Cardinals at the number 1 seed. That means that they've got to keep rolling with these wins. And Tom Brady and what he has with Mike Evans, with Chris Godwin, and especially with Gronk, the running game, seeing the consistency now more with Leonard Fournette, I'm not worried about this team at all. Definitely at home, got to give it to the Buccaneers. And last up, we got our Monday night matchup. We got the 6-7 Minnesota Vikings headed to Chicago to face the 4-9 Bears. Dominick, who you got?
Yeah, you weren't wrong when you said last up. I don't know how the Bears got 2 primetime games in a row. This one, though, I think they're actually going to win. The Vikings are very bad on the road. Out of their 13 games this year, 12 of them have come down to their last drive. It's just crazy what they do in games. Keeping this one close. Justin Fields looked half decent last week. I do think that the running game is going to be key here between David Montgomery and Dalvin Cook. It's going to be one of those physical NFC North games. But being that Chicago's at home and how Minnesota plays on the road, I'm going to give this one to Chicago to pull the upset.
Minnesota is not a good team, but for that matters, neither is the Bears. The Bears listen, if they go all in on Justin Fields, which it feels like they're doing this season, and he gets a healthy David Montgomery going, and he has Allen Robinson back, and all those pieces come together, this team can absolutely catch a win. Kirk Cousins is inconsistent as hell. I just never can count on this man from week to week. But meanwhile, he does have Justin Jefferson. We don't necessarily know if we're going to have Adam Thielen. It's not trending in the direction that he'll be back, but they do have Dalvin Cook. It's going to be, as Dominick said, it's probably going to come down to a matchup of running game. I trust Dalvin Cook a little bit more than I trust David Montgomery. And as much as I want to pick the Chicago Bears because I love this kid, Justin Fields, and I want to see him do well there so that they will continue to go forward with him, got to give it to the Vikings just because I like Dalvin Cook just a slight bit more. Well, you guys, that's all of our matchups. Dominick, give me 1 start and 1 sit in fantasy.
Well, we're into the playoffs now, so I'm going to skip the sit because you can't really sit anybody here. But I'm going to give you a couple of long shot starts here. I'll start in Jacksonville. I know we both said they suck and their team is bad, and that's true, but they're going to have to do something here on offense. They can't just do everything on defense. James Robinson only had 4 carries last week, so they're really pulling away from him, but Trevor Lawrence is going to have to do something here. His number one target lately hasn't been Laviska Shenault. It hasn't even been Marvin Jones Jr. It's actually been Laquan Treadwell, which is sad to say, but he is a very long shot here. So if you really are in a bind here, you can start Laquan Treadwell if you have somebody out on COVID. The other person I'm going to give you is in the Arizona game. We know that Nuke's not going to be healthy for the rest of the year. AJ Green's actually been doing a lot for the past couple weeks. He had over 100 yards for the first time of the season last week. Nuke Hopkins actually hasn't had any games over 100 yards yet this year, and AJ Green had one last week. With Nuke Hopkins going to be out, Kyler Murray's going to count on him a lot more. So if he's on your waiver wire, or especially if you're playing in DFS, I would start AJ Green this week.
Well, you guys, that's all the time that we have. I want to thank everybody again for listening. Be sure to follow me on Twitter at TheNFLGirl320. Dominic, where can they follow you?
You can follow me on Twitter at EnvisionFF.
You can read more of my thoughts on SheKnowsProFootball.com. Dominic, where can they read your work?
You can read my work at TheAthletic.com, Rotoballer.com, and ExpandTheBoxScore.com.
That's all the time we have, you guys. See you back here next week.